Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, madam.
Audible.
Thank you very much. Very good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Moushumi Mitro, Assistant Professor and Head, Department of Economics, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay, and moderator of the first day of these 3 days international webinar on Anthropology of Epidemics, organized by Department of Anthropology and IQAC, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay, Kapgari, Jhargram, West Bengal, India, in collaboration with Department of Anthropology, Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalay, Kespur, Paschim, Medinipur, West Bengal, India. On behalf of Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay, I cordially welcome the Honorable Resource Persons, the Honorable Chairperson of our technical session of today's event, our special guests, the entire organizing team, technical staffs, teachers, academicians, research scholars from different institutes across the country, as well as our students participants. Dear participants, in today's inaugural session, we have with us Professor Dr. Debaprasad Sahu, Honorable Principal of Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay and Chairman of these 3 days international webinar. Professor Dr. Deepak Kumar Bhuiya, Honorable Principal of Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalay and also the Chairman of these 3 days event. Mrs. Ruby Adok Panda, Faculty and Head, Department of Anthropology, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay, and Organizing Secretary and Convener of these 3 days international webinar. It's my pleasure to announce that in this inaugural session, we have with us another eminent person, Professor Dr. Amiyo Kumar Panda, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Sadhu Ramchand Murmu University, which is also known as the Jhargram University. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining with us. First, let me invite our respected principal of Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay and also the chairman of this 3 days international webinar, Professor Dr. Debaprasad Sahu, to deliver the welcome address. It's over to you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Good afternoon, everybody. Myself, Dr. Debaprasad Sahu, Principal of Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay, Kapgari, Jhargram, West Bengal, and Chairman of this international webinar. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all the honorable guests, resource persons, delegates, and participants to this international webinar on Anthropology and Epidemics, organized by Department of Anthropology and IQAC, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay, Jhargram, West Bengal, in collaboration with Department of Anthropology, Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalay, Paschim, Medinipur, West Bengal, India. This is the remarkable international webinar of the Department of Anthropology in the history of our institution, which is completely conducted on digital platforms due to pandemic in the Jungle Mahal area. My special thanks to Dr. Deepak Kumar Bhuiya, Principal, Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalay, Kespur, Paschim Medinipur, and Chairman of this international webinar, and his all team members to collaborate with our institution. Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay was established on 17th July 1964 by Dr. P.K. Sen, an eminent educationist, who was promoted by the urgent necessity of providing the young minds of the remote poor village and its adjacent areas with quality higher education. The name Seva Bharati suggests that the ideal Indian can only be constituted on the noble principle of Seva or service. The word Bharati is also highly significant. One meaning of Bharati is speech, another is learning. The college is dedicated to this noble service since its establishment, and it has completed its 50 years of glorious service to the nation. The motto of the college is Tapasya, Seva and Pragati, which means that the development of either the nation or of the individual is a progressive concept which can be achieved through sincere contemplation and selfless service. The education can only be achieved through tapasya. As Swami Vivekananda says, to me the very essence of education is concentration of mind. I extend my heartfelt thanks and sincere gratitude to Professor Amiyo Kumar Ponda, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Sadhu Ramchand Murmu University, Jhargram, West Bengal, and also inaugurator of this 3 days international webinar. My grateful thanks and regards to you, sir. I feel honored to welcome all the resource persons of this 3 days international webinar in this auspicious occasion. Professor Arup Ratan Bandyopadhyay, Department of Anthropology, University of Calcutta, West Bengal, India. Professor Oscar Nowak, Institute of Human Biology and Evolution, Poland. Professor Adil Hassan Chowdhury, Department of Anthropology, Rajshahi University, Bangladesh. Mohammad Ghulam Hossain, Professor, Department of Statistics, Rajshahi University, Bangladesh. Professor Elena Godina, Department of Anthropology, Moscow State University, Moscow. Professor Pinak Torofdar, Department of Anthropology, North Bengal University, India. My grateful thanks and regards to all of you. I feel privileged to welcome all the invited speakers and all the chairpersons of this 3 days international webinar. Professor Subir Biswas, Department of Anthropology, West Bengal State University, West Bengal, India. Professor Subhan Bandyopadhyay, Department of Anthropology, Vidyasagar University, West Bengal, India. Dr. Raja Chakraborty, Department of Anthropology, Dinabandhu Mahavidyalay. Professor Amit Kumar Kespur, Department of Anthropology, Vidyasagar University, West Bengal, India. Dr. Jyoti Ratan Ghosh, Department of Anthropology, Bharati University, Santiniketan, West Bengal, India. Professor Sudeep Phui, Department of Anthropology and Tribal Studies, Sidhu Kanu Birsa University, India. My grateful thanks and regards to all of you. I extend my heartily thanks to Mrs. Ruby Adok Ponda, Faculty and HOD, Department of Anthropology, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay. She is also the organizing secretary and convener of this international webinar. Dr. Vinod Chaudhary, Vice Principal, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay and co-chairman of this international webinar. Dr. Sumit Kumar Maiti, Assistant Professor and Coordinator, IQAC, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay. Dr. Arup Mujumdar, Research Investigator, Cultural Research Institute, Government of West Bengal, and joint convener of this 3 days international webinar. Dr. Shantanu Panda, Researcher and Faculty, Department of Anthropology, Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalay, and joint secretary of this 3 days international webinar. Farhad Najad, Assistant Professor, Department of Anthropology, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay. Sumon Mondal, Assistant Professor, Department of Physiology, Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalay. Novendu Bera Kakoli Chottoraj, Faculty, Department of Anthropology, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay. I warmly welcome all the paper presenters from various institutions of different parts of our country as well as different parts of the world. This international webinar is going to be a vibrant and fruitful platform for academic discussion with the participation of paper presenters from various colleges, universities and academic institutions. Finally, I extend my genuine sense of appreciation to all members of organizing committee, technical assistants and other members of the international webinar. Last but not the least, this webinar is for the academic development of the student community, we suffer a lot during this COVID-19 pandemic situation. I wholeheartedly welcome all the students to participate in this webinar to make it a fruitful and memorable one. I wish a grand success of this webinar. Once again, thank you all. Thank you everybody. Thank you. Over to
Thank you.
Madam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable speech. Now, before inviting Professor Dr. Amyo Kumar Ponda, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Sadhu Ramchand Murmu University, which is also known as Jhargram University, let me introduce him briefly to our participants. Dr. Amyo Kumar Ponda obtained his PhD degree from Tripura University in 1998. Before joining in Sadhu Ramchand Murmu University as Vice Chancellor, he served Department of Chemistry, Vidyasagar University, West Bengal. His field of research is polymer and surface chemistry. He has 99 publications in various reputed journals and books. 13 students were awarded PhD under his supervision. He was awarded Shiksha Ratna Award in 2019 from Department of Education, Government of West Bengal. Dr. Ponda was a member of the Editorial Advisory Board of Langmuir and Journal of Oleoscience from 2017 to 2020. He was awarded Bronze Medal from Chemical Research Society of India in 2015. He obtained DST JSPS Short-Term Visiting Fellowship in 2014. He was awarded the Best Teacher Award from the Chemical Research Society of India in 2012 and Endeavour Award from Government of Australia in 2008. He was the visiting scientist of Yarnwalk Research Institute, University of South Australia in 2006. He was awarded Boyka's Fellowship from Department of Science and Technology, Government of India in 2001 and Young Scientist Award from Indian Science Congress Association in 2001. Dr. Amyo Kumar Ponda is a life member of many learned societies, a few of which are Chemical Research Society of India, Indian Society for Surface Science and Technology, and Indian Chemical Society. With this short introduction, now I cordially invite Professor Dr. Amyo Kumar Ponda, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Sadhu Ramchand Murmu University, to deliver the inaugural speech. It's over.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam, for your kind introduction. Dr. Devaprasad Sahu, Principal, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay, Kapgari, Jhargram, and Dr. Deepak Kumar Bhuiya, Principal, Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalay, Kespur, Paschim, Medinipur, and the Chairman of the International Webinar, other members and advisors of the organizing committee, eminent resource persons, distinguished chairpersons of the different academic sessions, delegates, representatives from print and electronic media, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure and honor to act as an inaugurator in the international webinar on anthropology of epidemic, which is jointly organized by Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay and Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalay. My heartfelt thanks to Ruby Adok Panda, Organizing Secretary, and Dr. Sumit Kumar Maiti, Coordinator IQAC Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay, Dr. Shantanu Panda, Joint Secretary of the International Webinar, as well as all the organizing members who have worked hard to ensure that this occasion becomes a memorable success. Now, as a layman in anthropology or epidemics, when I really feel embarrassed when I have to say something, but as the organizing committee has bestowed upon me the responsibility to inaugurate the seminar, I would like to ask, I asked myself that how is health and illness understood by the anthropologist? My learned colleagues from the foothills of Himalayas and to the southernmost part of Bengal and across the globe, I am very happy to see your my old colleagues from North Bengal University, from Barashat, from uh, Sidhu Kanu, and from Vidyasagar University. I was trying to ask myself, how is health and illness understood by anthropologists? So what I understand that in order to understand the anthropological approach to health and illness, it is necessary to know the definition of terms related to the topics. Health systems that also include cultural perceptions and classification of health-related issues, healing practices, diagnosis, prevention, and healers, according to Miller in 2011. Now again, what is sickness in anthropology? It is nothing but the condition of the body. It spans from tooth decay, measles, or a broken bone are the examples. On the contrary, illness is a feeling of not being normal and healthy. Illness may in fact be due to a disease, however, it may also be due to a feeling of psychological and spiritual imbalance. And again, to be more precise, medical anthropology plays an important role in examining the local context of disease diagnosis, treatment, and prevention, and the structural as well as conceptual barriers to improve health status. And again, here comes the ethnomedicine, which is concerned with the cultural interpretations of health, disease, and illness, and also addresses the health care seeking process and healing practices. What were the successful anthropological interventions in Ebola pandemic or Ebola epidemic? And that is a prelude to the conception of today's webinar. Now, and to my understanding, during combating the Ebola epidemic, anthropologists played an invaluable role in recognizing that communities were ready and able to take action to respond to the epidemic, but needed targeted and specific support from the scientific and technical experts and material resources. Over the past decades, infectious disease epidemics have come to increasingly pose major global health challenges and to humanity. The anthropology of epidemics approaches epidemics as total social phenomena to my understanding. The processes and events which encompass and exercise a transformational impact on social life, whilst at the same time functioning as catalysts of shifts and ruptures as regards human non-human relations, bearing a particular mark on the subject areas and questions which have recently come to shape developments in anthropological thinking. The volume brings epidemics to the forefront of anthropological debate as an exemplary arena for social scientific study and analysis. And again, why anthropology is so relevant in terms of epidemics? Because the 21st century began with unusual optimism. I would say unusual optimism. The halting of severe acute respiratory syndrome SARS epidemic in 2003 was hailed as the result of rigorous quarantine and isolation measures, with the de-emergence of the disease, fostering the legitimacy of these 16th century technologies of epidemic control. No modern technologies were required. 10 years later, in 2014-2016, Ebola epidemic in West Africa came to brutally deflate the quarantine in Victoria, again proving the implementation and efficiency of the particular anti-epidemic measure to be far a more debatable and contentious matter than advocated by the proponents of the lesion of SARS. Soon after, again, Zika crisis in South America saw another turn, this time toward an epidemic control method that had been largely discredited within the growing health paradigm. It is vector eradication. Newspapers and screens were filled with the images of popular Victorian epidemic control technique, fumigation. Fumigation, Victorian epidemic control technique. Again, COVID-19 is the latest addition to this aforementioned outbreak. And at a first reading of responses to these highly mediated outbreaks may suggest that the last line of defense against epidemics on the ground is far less technologically subtle and more material than narratives of an electronically dematerialized world that may lead to us to assume. However, my expectation from the anthropologists is that you need to take seriously the self-positioning of epidemic control as technologically advanced and consider the contemporary entanglement between counter-epidemic technologies of different historical provenances on the ethnographic ground. This is not as to make yet another argument of hybridization, but to elucidate the material and technological aspect of the way in which epidemic control does not simply result from, but it is informative of epistemic frameworks and power to relation. I am very glad to learn that the organizers have been able to invite a galaxy of eminent speakers, as already mentioned by Dr. Shah. And I'm sure that today's webinar will instill inspiration among the stakeholders of the two esteemed institutions. Also, I do hope that some positive outcome will help the society in overcoming the present pandemic. I thank all the distinguished invited speakers and the chairpersons from various universities in India and abroad for your valuable talk in the topic which is most helpful to the students, scholars and academicians. I formally declare the seminar open. I wish I could continue my presence in the throughout the today's seminar, but due to some didactic responsibilities, I will not be able to continue my presence or not be able to remain present. I think that would be my personal loss, but emotionally and mentally I am always there with the organizers and in the seminar. I again formally declare the seminar open. Thank you very much indeed for your patience here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with us and your nice inaugural speech. Now, let me cordially invite Professor Dr. Deepak Kumar Bhuiya, Honorable Principal of Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalay, who is also the chairman of this webinar, to say something about the webinar. Principal sir of Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalay.
Maybe I think is not there. He's not joined today. Maybe I think he's in the way to Delhi for health checkup. Maybe he's not there.
Oh, okay,
I
sir.
think so.
Okay, sir. So, unfortunately, sir was unable to join with us. So, let us proceed. Now,
Yeah.
Now let me cordially invite Mrs. Ruby Adok-Ponda, Faculty and Head, Department of Anthropology, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay, and Organizing Secretary and Convener of this 3 days international webinar on Anthropology of Epidemics, to introduce the theme of the webinar.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam. Good afternoon, all of you. I am heartily thankful to the Dr. Debaprasad Sahu, Principal, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalaya, Kapgari, Jhargram, and Chairman of the International Webinar for his continuous support for the grand success of the webinar. I am also thankful to the principal Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalaya for his permission to collaboration with us. My heartfelt thanks to Professor Amiyo Kumar Panda, Vice Chancellor Sadhu Ramchand Murmu University, Jhargram, for his kind presence in our international webinar to act as inaugurator. I am thankful to Dr. Arup Majumdar, Research Investigator of Cultural Research Institute, Government of West Bengal, and Dr. Shantanu Panda, Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalaya. Without their academic support, this webinar is not possible. We are very grateful to the distinguished invited speakers and chairperson from various universities in India and abroad for their valuable talk in the topic which is most helpful to the students, scholars, and academicians. So today our broad theme, Anthropology of Epidemics. Anthropology is the study of what makes us human. Anthropology studies differences in humans through space and time. All humans share the same fundamentals of genetics, physiology, and neurology. Similarly, they share the same basic needs for food, shelter, security, reproduction, and social expression. However, the environments, mechanisms, and interactions that humans use to meet their needs vary widely and manifest in surprisingly diverse social, ecological, and epigenetic differences among and between individuals and populations. Social scientists, anthropologists in particular, have for some time been recognized as potentially important players in emergency public health efforts. Anthropologists are potentially important players in emergency public health response, providing insight on the social dynamics of health, illness, and disease transmission. Anthropological methods are quite distinct from and may be in tension with other public health techniques. Epidemic is an unexpected increase in the number of disease cases in a specific geographical area. Yellow fever, smallpox, measles, and polio are prime examples of epidemics that occurred throughout American history. Epidemiology is the method used to find the causes of health outcomes and disease in populations. In epidemiology, the patient is the community and individuals are viewed collectively. By definition, epidemiology is the study of the distribution of health-related states and events in specified populations. The COVID-19 pandemic led to a prolonged exposure to stress. As a consequence, researchers showed an increased interest in measuring social and community uneasiness in order to psychologically support the population. Online psychological services provide several support advantages, especially in the current situation of pandemic. First of all, online services help people in a short period of time, reducing the risk of contagion and the strong feeling of anxiety in both psychotherapists and patients who feel uncomfortable in doing traditional psychotherapy due to the pandemic. The researcher is also highlighted the impact of COVID-19 in human being and or human health in the present webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Fonda, for introducing the theme nicely. Now we will move towards our technical session. I feel proud to announce that two distinguished resource persons are present in this session to share their knowledge and views with our participants. So in this session, we have with us Professor Premananda Bharati, Professor Biological Anthropology Unit, Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, and Professor Shomokanti Bishwas, Professor, Department of Anthropology, North Bengal University, West Bengal. To chair the technical session, we have with us another eminent anthropologist, Dr. Bidhan Kanti Das, Associate Professor, Institute of Development Studies, Kolkata. Before inviting Dr. Das to take the charge of our technical session, let me provide a brief introduction of him. Dr. Bidhan Kanti Das is the Associate Professor of Anthropology at the Institute of Development Studies, Kolkata since 2014. He is acting as coordinator of Calcutta University IDSK MPhil program in Development Studies since 2017. He was awarded with gold medal for first class first in master degree in anthropology. He was worked as UGC JRF and SRF for 5 years and earned his PhD degree in anthropology in 2001. He also worked as protected area sociologist at Boxa Tiger Reserve, Department of Forests, Government of West Bengal, under the World Bank Assisted India Eco Development Project from 1998 to 2003. He is teaching MPhil in Development Studies for last 15 years. He has published research articles on both biological issues such as consanguinity and its consequences, inbreeding effects on quantitative traits, fertility, mortality, morbidity, and nutritional issues, etc., as well as development issues such as forest-tribal interface, local forest management, institutional issues in natural resource governance, forest rights, decentralized governance, vulnerability and resilience to climate change, biocultural diversities and challenges of marginalized communities for last 80 years. He has published more than 40 research articles in various national and international journals of repute. He has also co-edited 2 books named Biodiversity Conservation in India, Management Practices, Livelihood Concerns and Future Options, and Rethinking Tribe in Indian Context, Realities, Issues and Challenges. With this short introduction, now I cordially invite Dr. Bidhan Kanti Das, Associate Professor, Institute of Development Studies, Kolkata, to chair our technical session. It's over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mosumi Mitro. Thank you for great introductions. Actually, first of all, I would like to thank organizing secretary or convener, Mrs. Ruby Adak Pandal, faculty and HOD of Department of Anthropology, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay, and joint convener, Dr. Arup Mojumdar, and the joint secretary, Dr. Shantanu Panda, who is also a faculty of Department of Anthropology, Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalay. I have given a charge I have to act, rather, they have requested to act as a chairperson for an interesting session of 3-day international webinar on anthropology of epidemics that is organized obviously the Department of Anthropology, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay, Kapgari, in collaboration with the Department of Anthropology, Sukumar Mahavidyalay, Kespur. So, what I try to introduce as I believe, as I conceptualize the whole epidemics, how to study the epidemics, what is raging the recent world, what would be the probable advantageous conditions for anthropologists as their interesting framework, what we call the biocultural framework, which is very useful, my degree, for understanding the epidemics or any kind of epidemiological studies. Now, the problem is the epidemics that is caused by the pathogens is not new actually. You will find in human history. So historically, human experienced infectious diseases or diseases by agents like tuberculosis, plagues, red plagues, rabies, Ebola, malarias, various flus, swine flu, for example, and a variety of coronaviruses. Thus, infections from the interactions with other species, that is various agents, is not new, but the context of epidemics is different. So various, in fact, as I believe that context is very important for any kind of studies. Now, you will find a lot of scholars, research scholars across disciplines, like epidemiologists, biologists, geneticists, microbiologists, approach this phenomenon from only the biological, from the perspective of biological aspects. And thereby, this approach is basically a reductionist in nature. But the epidemic, if you go through if you want to understand the epidemics, then it needs a contextual study, and that's why it is very complex and messy, perhaps. Now, the context is very different for every epidemic. Context is different because human actions continuously reshaping the world. By how? By creating urban landscapes, industrial agriculture, global economies, globalizations, industrializations, and of course the genetic technologies. And thus, humans are basically a niche constructor. They construct, always constructing with the changing worlds. They are reshaping these changing worlds. On the other hand, nature also push back by creating new systems, and that's why it is very dynamic. So human niche construction creates simultaneously ecological, biological, social, political systems, and as well as economic systems that are always interrelated. You cannot separate these biological aspects as well as social, ecological, political, economic aspects. For example, suppose take the SARS, Zika, or present day COVID-19 is not simply biological one. It's simply a biological event. But also you have to look at how people actually perceive, process this event, and share this event and act on information whatever available about the epidemic. So all these issues are deeply social practices having substantial impact on bodies and lives. So epidemic diseases are deeply biosocial, disrupting mind, body, and also community. So treating biology as a separate from the social and cultural provides a partial understanding. In case of, for example, in case of COVID-19, for example, to treat the biological aspect is the one realm of information. And social, political, and economic aspects is as another realm of information that creates a disconnections among the key components of the whole integrated systems of epidemics. So I think bicultural framework in anthropology, in understanding the fuller understanding of the epidemics like COVID-19 epidemic, SARS epidemic, is more advantageous than the perspective approached by the what we call the epidemiologist, what they are working, a geneticist, or perhaps economist. So from that perspective, seminar, this international seminar on anthropology of epidemic is very timely and important. I strongly believe that the research findings of various anthropologists who are contributing this in this seminar in the next 2.5 days provide useful insights in understanding epidemics. So I have to moderate this session. We have two eminent speakers on this session on these issues. The first one is Professor Premananda Bharati, is a professor of biological anthropology, unit of Indian Statistical Institute, is teaching an elective course on human genetics in bachelor's program in statistics for 25 years. He is also he taught for 2 weeks at the Center for Statistics, HRC, Pretoria, South Africa. He is also a guest professor in the Department of Anthropology, Western State University. He has undertaken several projects on issues like microenvironmental factors on health and disease among the population of contrasting ecological niches, occupational change and obesity and hypertension, estimation of IMR, MMR, methodology of measurements of poverty. He has published several research articles in international journals like Ecology of Food and Nutrition, Annals of Human Biology, Journal of Biosocial Science, Asia Pacific Journal of Public Health, Human Biology, Annals of Human Biology, Human Biological Review, Food Nutrition Manual. So today, Professor Premananda Bharati will speak on prevalence of overweight, anemia, and other non-communicable diseases among Indians. So may I ask Professor Premananda Bharati to speak on this?
Thank you very much.
Professor Bharati, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Professor Bharati, you will get, as per the organizer's time schedule, you will get 30 minutes for your speech.
Okay. It is audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Today I like to talk about the prevalence of overweight, anemia, and the non-communicable diseases among Indians. Everybody knows that obesity was recognized as a disease near about the 40 years ago. Now obesity is defined as the first wave of non-communicable diseases called New World Syndrome. Obesity is also regarded as one of the today's most neglected public health problem affecting every region of the globe. like obesity, anemia also another nutritional deficiency disease in the world. India has the highest percentage of anemia in the world. Heart disease and the cancer are the leading killers, whereas the diabetes and the asthma are on the rise. In this seminar, I like to say something about to see the prevalence of obesity and anemia among the adult women and men in all the zones of India. We divided the India into 6 zones. We like to see all the zones, what is the percentage or prevalence of obesity and anemia. And to see the degree of association of obesity and anemia with the different socio-economic variables. And also to see the prevalence of different non-communicable diseases among adult women and men in all the zones in India. For this, we use the NFHS sport data, which collected in 2015-16, and our sample size for the women is 6,47,000, more than 6 lakhs for the women, and near about the 1 lakh for the men. And we consider here the age is 15 to 49 years, 29 states in India and 7 union territories. For the assessment of the health status, nutritional status, body mass index, anemia and the different non-communicable diseases has been considered. The classification of BMI was followed the WHO classification, and anemia, if it is the hemoglobin value less than 12 grams per deciliter for the non-pregnant women and for less than 13 grams for the men, we consider the anemia here. And I know that everybody knows what is the BMI, body mass index. Generally, we define the body mass index weight in kilogram divided by height in meter square. And here we divided the obesity, only the overweight and obese and normal and chronic energy deficiency in the BMI. That is, when the BMI value is more than 30, then we call the obese. If it is 25 to 29, then we call the overweight. And if it's 18.5 to 24.9, we call the normals. And if the value is less than 18.5, then we call the chronic deficiency. We generally call the BMI, we calculate the BMI for assessment of the malnourished, overweight and the underweight also. Here we calculate the anemia. Anemia is a condition in which there is a deficiency of hemoglobin in the blood. We divided the mild, moderate, severe, and total anemia. Mild we considered if the hemoglobin value 10.0 to 10.9 gram per deciliter. If moderate is 7.0 to 9.9 gram per deciliter. If the severe is less than 7 grams. And the anemia we consider here, if for the non-pregnant woman it is 12 years or less than 12 years, and for the men it is less than 13 years. Then when non-anemic is above 12 gram per deciliter for non-pregnant women and 13 gram per deciliter for the men, we consider the anemia. And we also did some socioeconomic variable which we particular factor responsible for the obesity and anemia. Here we consider the age, residential status, marital status, education, religion, and the wealth index. We do the percentage value, and we also see the gender gap also, if male-female difference is there, and also the association of BMI and anemia with the different socioeconomic variables. And we also see the gender gap of overweight, obesity, and anemia and different non-communicable diseases. The percentage of men data has been subtracted from the percentage of women data. If the sign is positive, it denotes the woman is more affected than men. And if the sign is negative, that it denotes that men are more affected than women. When we see the obesity or overweight distribution in Indian population, that we see the more than 25% of overweight and anemic state are 9 states out of the 29 states in India. It is too alarming situation in the obesity in Indian population, like in epidemic situations in India. Of these 9 states, 5 states, women are the more affected. More than 30% of the overweight and obese, and 4 states are in case of a male. It is in Sikkim, Goa, Daman Diu, Punjab, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Pondicherry, and Andaman Nicobar Island. It is too alarming situation in Indian context. We divided the India into 6 zones: North zones, West zone, Southern zones, Central zone, East zone, and Northeast zone. The 6 zones we see, when we see the overweight women in the 6 zone, then we see the South zones, more than 23.1% are overweight. It is, and the less is Central zone, it is 10.9%. And North and West also, it is near about the 19%, more than 19%. It is also too alarming overweight situation in Indian population. Though South is too high, is 23.1%. When we consider the obesity, obese women in different zones in India, then we see that still the South is too much obese. It is more than 9.1% obese in Southern region, and also in the North is 7.7%, West is 7.2%, but it is less in Eastern region. We don't have a much problem of obesity in Eastern, Northeastern, and Central region. But in South, West, and North is too much problem in obese condition in women in India. It is also very, very alarming situation in the Indian population that if you don't look now to reduce the obesity, it has a epidemic situation in India. When we consider these both overweight and obese women in different zones, we see still the South zone is too high. It is 32.2%. Too much in overweight and obese condition in southern zones. Even in west and northern also, more or less the similar, it is 27 and 26%. But the eastern, northeastern, and central is slightly less. Though it is also problematic now, it is more than 10% of the Indian populations. When we go to men, the men overweight is slightly less, but still it is high in south. It is 24%, and west is 20%, and north is 18%. But central, east, and north also very less compared to the other 3 regions. When we consider the obese in men, it is a southern region. Still, it is very high. Not very high, but it is high. Compared to the women, it is not too much high, but still it is high in southern region. It is 5.3%, and west also 5.1%. Other region is slightly less. The problem is not too much obese men in central, eastern, northeastern region. Even in also north region, not the very problematic now in Indian populations. But still it is increasing day by day that we have to think about this. When we consider the overweight and obese men in different zones, then we see this south region is 29.5%, too high. Even in north is 22%, and west is 25%, and all other zones are more than 10%. It is also slightly alarming, but not like the women. Women is too much alarming situation in India. And when we go through the anemia, that we see that out of the 6 zones, 5 zones anemia in the women is more than 50%. It is also very, very alarming situation in Indian population. 50% of the women are anemic in Indian population in these 5 zones out of the 6. And other zones it is 39.2, more right about the 40% is anemic. But in case of a male, it is not so alarming. But in the west or east, it is alarming. It is more than 30%. When we see the gender-wise distribution of the nutritional status of the adult women, then we see that underweight percentage is 22.9%. And obese and overweight, it is 20.6%. Underweight and overweight and obese are more or less the same. It is in 22.9 and 20.6%. But when we see the different states distribution of overweight and the overweight and obese and underweight, it is seen that eastern region is underweight is too much, is 27.5%, but it is less in northeast. Northeast is better conditions, and mainly in the Sikkim it is 6.4% is underweight, but in general in India it is 22.9 and 20.7% is obese. But when we consider the obesity and obese, then we see that in Chandigarh it is 41.4% is obese. Even in the southern region it is 22%. Lakshadweep it is 40%. Two alarming situation on the Chandigarh north region in Chandigarh and the south zones, and even in the Lakshadweep it is too high overweight and obese in Indian populations. But when we consider the nutritional status of adult male, then we see the underweight is 20.2% and the overweight and obese in 18.9%. It also the more or less same, but compared to the women, it is slightly less, but more or less the same. When we see the state-wise distribution of men, then the northeast is better position compared to the other state in underweight, but underweight is more in central Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, etc. So they are the too much in that ones. But when we consider the overweight or obese, the Meghalaya is better. It is only the 10%, but very high in men is 32%. Even in the south region is too high. Andaman Nicobar is 38%. It is also too much alarming in men all this region of India. When we see the gender-wise difference in obesity and overweight, then we see the 20.7% adult women are overweight and obese, whereas in the men it is 18.9%. It is more or less the same. Sure, the occurrence of overweight and obesity is more among the women than men, and the difference is 1.8%. This trend is more or less same in all the states of India except in Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, Sikkim, Dadra Nagar Haveli, Haveli, Andaman and Nicobar Island, where the male are more obese than the female. That gender-wise difference is too much in northern region and too much in Chandigarh. Male-female difference is too much in Chandigarh. Female are deprived there. Though many of the state also female is depriving, But in case of India, the gender gap is very less in Indian situation. Day by day, it is increasing. It is very interesting figure for Indian region. When we see the gender difference in overweight and obesity among the adult Indian, then you see the gender gap, the male-female difference is more in northern region compared to the other region in India. Very less in northeast region gender-wise differences. When we see the anemic condition in India, then we see the 39.6% are mild anemic, 12.4% is the moderate anemic, and 1% is severe anemic in Indian region. Altogether, the non-anemic is 47% in case of women, and affected is 53%. Women are affected in anemia. It is a very, very, very alarming situation in Indian population, though it is decreasing now. And when we consider in the male, then it is 12% is mild anemic, 9.6% in moderate, and 1.1% in severe anemic, and 77.3% are non-anemic, and 22 point something for anemic in Indian population. When we see the distribution of different states in India, then we see that in case of anemia, this eastern region is 59.7% is anemic, and the difference between male and female is very high. Is Chandigarh, Delhi, even in Dadra Nagar Valley, all these differences very high are that. When we see the anemia in difference between the gender, it is too high in northern region and very less in northeast region, though it is a very high difference between the male and female. When we see the association between the overweight, obesity and anemia with some socioeconomic variable, it is seen that both gender, overweight or obesity, and non-anemia are positively related with age, urbanization, education, religion groups, other caste, and the wealth index. It is also seen that overweight and obesity has more in west, north, and south zone, and the anemia in the east zones. As age increasing, the overweight also the increasing. There is a lots of difference between the rural urban difference. Urban obesity is more compared to the rural areas. Marital status also, widow, etc. They have the current married women are more anemic, more obese compared to the other. And when we consider education level, as education is increasing, obesity also increasing. And Hindu and Christian are the more obese compared to the Hindu and Muslims. As the wealth index increases, the obesity also increases. And when we compare the anemia, this anemia is very high in age group of 20 to 29 years, and the urban region also anemia is very high, and the widow also anemia is very high, and the higher as this, the wealth index has no effect on the anemia. The analysis reveals that in both gender, overweight, obese is directly related with age, urbanization, marital status, female education, religion, and a high wealth index. When we consider the non-communicable diseases among the women and men in India, that we know that 1.7% women and men have the diabetes, and 1.9% for the and 1.2% is asthma, male and female. male is more asthmatic compared to the female, and 2.2% and 0.5% is thyroid disorder. In case of a female, thyroid is more compared to the male, and the heart disease is, in case of a female, it is more compared to the male also. Among the women, higher percentage of these non-communicable diseases are concentrated in the south zone, and lowest concentration on diabetes, asthma, and thyroid disorder found in the central zones. The heart disease are found west zone, and highest gender gap are found in southern zones. And among the men, highest percentage of those non-communicable diseases are concentrated in south zones, where the obesity, etc., is very high, and the lowest concentration of diabetes in central zones, asthma in the north zone, thyroid and the heart disease in the western zone, and the cancer is the northeastern zones. Then we can say from this that in Indian cases, 20.7% adult women are overweight and obese, whereas in the male it is 18.9%. Female are more obese and overweight compared to the male. So the occurrence of overweight and obesity is more among the women than men, and the differences is 1.8%. This view also support the view that women had consistently lower level of recommended dietary activities than men. It is also known that one of the cause of more overweight and obese among the women is endocrine hormone factors, which is not so significant among men. The thyroid problem is more in case of a female. That is maybe one of the reasons of increasing obesity and overweight. Gender gap is decreasing largely. Now in Indian situation, slightly better. Gender gap gradually decreasing in Indian populations. And socio-economic conditions have profound effect on overweight and obesity, and the result shows that it is positively related with the age, urban locality, higher education, religion, and caste and wealth index of the families. In India, and I can say one thing to that, the pesticide use also create the obesity in Indian populations. Not in Indian, the other country also. If you use the too much pesticide, that also affect the increasing obesity. In India, percentage of anemia among adult women is 53%, and among men it is 22.7%. The gender difference is 30.3%, that is females is higher affected than male. Regarding the certain non-communicable diseases, percent of the diabetes, 1.7% among women and men are the same, more or same. The diabetes is low, the diabetes is increasing day by day Indian population. It is also like the epidemic situation in India, like obesity. Obesity is just like a epidemic situation. Even the diabetes is increasing too fast in Indian population. Maybe within a few years, it also affects as an epidemic situation in Indian condition. The percentage of asthma and thyroid also more in women than men, but it is also increasing day by day. Percentage of affected heart disease and cancer of the women and men are more or less same, but the female are a little bit more affected than male. We see that cancer also increasing day by day. Regarding cancer, male are more affected than the females. Overnutrition concentrated zone of India is the north, west, and south. High anemia affected zone is eastern region. The highest concentration zones of different communicable diseases are south zones. For these temporal trends in NFHS 3 to NFHS 4, it is seen that in case of overnutrition, only 8.1 units of women and 9.6 units of men are increased. It is also the obesity and overweight are increasing in India for NFHS 3 to LFHS4. In case of a female, it is 8.1 unit, and in case of a male, it is 9.6 unit. Male is increasing now, is too faster than female, though the female are more obese compared to the male, but it is increasing day by day. In case of anemia, only 2.3 unit of women and 1.3 unit of men have reduced during the last 10 years. In case of anemia, the anemia is reducing now in Indian population last 1 decade. Therefore, it can be concluded that beside the biological factors, obesity is associated with some socio-economic factors. The gender gap is decreasing largely, so it is indicate highly the impact of lifestyle, which is directly linked with industrialization and urbanization. As development is synonymous with urbanization and industrialization, so the appropriate precautionary measures must be taken to prevent the overweight and obese, which leads to diabetes and thyroid, along with the high anemia. Because obesity and overweight increasing, diabetes and thyroid percentage also increasing. We must prevent that. If this trend is continued, it is very alarming in near future as one of the serious public health problems among adults. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bharati. This is very interesting and insightful, and you provided very enlightened ideas or interesting insights. It emerges what we found from the distribution of prevalence of obesity and anemia. Should I ask if anybody wants to raise any questions? One can raise questions. I think what the organizer can we allow some times for question answers? Shantanu?
Yes, sir, we can allow 5 minutes.
Okay. If anybody has some comments or questions, questions, then one can raise.
Thank you very much.
Some Hemel
Can I ask
Babu.
a question? Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm Professor Ghulam Hussain from Bangladesh.
Okay,
Okay.
you can.
Thank you very much, Professor Bharati, for a nice presentation. I think this topic is very important nowadays because in our region, not only in our regions and overall the world, the obesity is major problem as well as the anemia. For the Indian results, and I think the Bangladesh results are about same regarding the obesity and anemia. But my question in here, only one question basically, when you find the association or effect of obesity on anemia or other non-communicable diseases, so did you control the effect of other variable?
That is true. We control the other variables also. We analyze that one to control some other variables also.
Okay, good. Another question, just very small questions. Did you find the trend of obesity or anemia among the Indian population? I mean the trend over the time in obesity or anemia?
Yeah, it is increasing day by day. If we see the LFHS 1 data to LFHS 5 data, it is within the 5 years it is increasing. Even in If you see the LFHS 5 data, it is also increasing too high in Indian population. And
Okay.
anemia is decreasing. That's a very interesting
Very
story in India,
interesting. Yes,
that the anemia is decreasing now in Indian populations.
I
When
think
we
so.
compare to the 1, 2, and 3, the anemia is increasing, but 4 and 5, the anemia is decreasing. It is one of the good things for the Indian situation, that anemia. But the obesity is increasing, like epidemic in a situation in Indian populations.
Yes, rapidly increasing also in
It
my
is rapidly
population also.
increasing to that.
Rapidly
Some of the
increasing.
region is very, very high. It
Yes.
is due to the food habit and the lifestyle. We are changing our lifestyle and the food habit. That's affect too much in obesity in Indian populations.
What is your opinion? I mean, how you suggest why the gender differences? I mean, the male and female regarding the obesity. Female is very much high than male. Why?
That is the lifestyle. I already mentioned these two things. One is the lifestyle is a problem. Second is the thyroid problems. Thyroid problem is too much in women. That scares the obesity of women populations.
Very good. Thank you, Professor Bharati. Thank you very much.
Another person, Himal Babu, he wants to, he raised hands. Himal Babu. Himal Babu. Another, I don't know, another Muhammad, Dr. Muhammad Adil, what I found in
Adil Hassan Chaudhary.
Adil Hassan, okay.
Chaudhary.
Do you want to raise any question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much to give me a chance to ask a question. Our dear Prema sir, we met 2 years ago in our 2 or 3 years ago in our country. I am Adil Hassan Chaudhary from Bangladesh, University of Rajshahi. I just want to know, and I was thinking that, is there any relationship between anemia and obesity? I think as we heard that obesity as well as anemia is a very alarming condition in India as well as also Bangladesh. So, do Premanand sir, Bharati sir,
That we don't find the much relationship of obesity and the anemia, but non-anemic person has the obesity is more. Even the anemic mother also has obesity also there. But if the hemoglobin increasing and obesity increasing, we don't find any trend there. But it has some relationship of that. The non-anemic women are more obese compared to the anemic women.
sir, is there any relationship between the economic status and obesity?
Yes, it is directly related. We calculated the if the income increases, the obesity also increases too much. We considered here the wealth index. The wealth index, if the wealth index is increasing, obesity is increasing too much. Even the education is increasing, the obesity is increasing too much. Even in the urban-rural differences, urban is too much obese compared to the rural areas.
So, food habit is
Food habit, yes, food habit and lifestyle too are the major factor that affect the obesity.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. If anybody, just one question. Okay.
May I?
Oh yes, Arup Bandyopadhyay, Professor Arup Bandyopadhyay.
Oh yes, thank you so much. Premad, I was listening you very carefully, and this is your nature, that you always say so good to the NFHS data. So one thing I would like to raise, and I usually raise that about the anemia, I think there are some kind of genetic factors, If you go to the northeastern part of India, you will find the hemoglobin E over there. And also if you come down to central part of India there is hemoglobin S. I feel so that can be a genetic content of the anemia, that this particular poor person has a genetic disorder of making the hemoglobin. So I feel this is might be one of the issues that we can think of about the anemia itself. And certainly this is being a very paradox that to me, that over the last 5 years also, like in NHS data, over the 5 years there is a per capita income was increased in India and globally, that is per capita income increase. Obesity is there, and India right now is going for with a double kind of burden. One is undernutrition and obesity. So that's a kind of enigma, that we are having per capita income is higher, but there is undernutrition. So I see the anthropology people who are doing research on anthropology can go with this double burden, that per capita income is higher, but this undernutrition is also going to be higher, like two ends, like alternative ends, like undernutrition and obesity. Thank you so much. That's only a kind of a rhetorical one. I mean, the responses are not very much needed, but if you take it as a justification, that's enough for me. Thank you.
Okay, Professor Bandyopadhyay, thank you. So we have to wind up the session, this lecture. Professor Bharati, thank you. Thank you for giving such an insightful presentations where a lot of issues are emerging, which is basically a large-scale study. So I have some sort of interest on why such variations. Is there any micro-level studies, how the processes are going on? That is very interesting for the anthropologist, perhaps, best analyzer for these issues emerging from the broader studies. So with this, Professor Bharati, thank you. We have another speaker, Professor Somarkanti Bishwas. He is a professor and the first founder faculty member at the Department of Anthropology, North Bengal University. And he is teaching for 25 years in North Bengal University. He has completed several research projects on culture and livelihood of tribes and rural people in respect of reforestation, land erosion, and other environmental change, land alienation, migrations, and related issues. His areas of interest are environment, culture, and society, tribal studies, Dalits, ethnic issues, and culture of peace studies. He has published more than 70 articles in journals and edited books. He is the chief editor right now of Man, Environment, and Society. He will speak on issues of epidemics and role of anthropology. So, Professor Somarkanti Bishwas, please. Would you please start?
Thank you. Thank you for giving me these opportunities to the chairperson. And before starting, I want to express my thanks to the principal of Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay, that is Sukumar, then Professor Devabroto Shahu, head of the department, Ruby Yadav Panda, convener, and the joint convener, most probably, that is Dr. Arup Majumdar and Shantanu Panda. Apart from this, I especially want to say or convey my thanks to the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Sadhu Ramchand Murmu University, Professor Amiyo Kumar Panda, my friends and very known persons, Professor Arup Bandyopadhyay, the chairpersons of this session, Professor Bidhan Kanti Das, if I am not wrong,
Yeah.
and Devabroto Premananda Bharati, and the persons who are not here, that is Professor Shubir Vishwas, Amit Kisku, Shumahan Bandyopadhyay, and Muhammad Mujammed Hossain, Professor Ghulam Hossain, Dr. Adil Hassan, and other distinguished participants and others.
Shamor,
Now,
please.
Yeah,
Would you please adjust your
Sure,
camera?
Sure.
So you are.
Just 1 second. Okay. Yes. Is it okay?
Not yet. It is not visible right now.
Is it visible?
No, not yet.
Visible now.
No.
Is it visible?
No.
Not yet.
বিধানদা একটু বুঝিয়ে বলো। সাদা সাদা দেখাচ্ছে, সাদা সমুদ্র।
হ্যাঁ, দেখছি।
আগে ঠিক ছিল, তোমার একটুখানি উঁচু হয়ে গেছিল ক্যামেরাটা।
হ্যাঁ, মানে না, ও প্রেজেন্টেশন করছে, পিপিটিটা মানে ঠিকঠাক আসছে না। নেটওয়ার্ক প্রবলেম নাকি?
দেখছি।
ওকে।
Visible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
এটা ফুল স্ক্রিন করো, ফুল স্ক্রিন করো।
Full screen.
হ্যাঁ, ফুল স্ক্রিনই আছে।
না, এটা
Full screen.
আচ্ছা, ওকে।
Yes.
Is it okay?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
ফুল
My side.
100.
Thank you. Now, I would like to present this paper as well as the topics, issues of epidemics and role of anthropology. Particularly, very recently we are facing these 2 or 3 types of epidemics, but now I want to say the epidemics, if we observe, it is not a new, and from very early, if we observe in the history of human civilization, there is a lot of evidence that human beings had to suffer from several infections, diseases, and face that these are caused by serious viral, bacterial, fungal, etc. agents, and these have extremely devastated not only human population but also their socio-cultural life, to a great extent, including the after epidemics, that is post-epidemics. We have seen the economic, socio-political belief systems, and as well as the whole social systems have been devastated and lost in many times. Even and again, if we observe that among these infectious diseases, all are not equally great. That is, some are very great epidemics, while some are lesser. And further, in many cases, we fail to identify what types of viral or bacterial or fungal infections are there. But due to this attack or infections, a huge numbers of people are died. That is, higher death rate was found. Moreover, if we observe that is ancient to till now, there have been large numbers of human populations are devastated and made vulnerable, and these epidemics made vulnerable their progress, development, and socio-cultural life as a whole. The evidence is there that most vulnerable infectious diseases such as plague, smallpox, typhus, 1510 influenza pandemic, yellow fever, measles, Papua New Guinea Kuru epidemics, 1901 to 2009, typhoid fever, malaria in 1942 to 1944 was happened in Egypt. Cholera, dengue fever, 1977 Russian flu, and Hong Kong flu, HIV/AIDS, malaria, in 2015-16 Zika virus epidemic, and 2015 Indian swine flu. The outbreak, that is, then the Kivu Ebola epidemic, dengue fever, coronavirus disease, 2009 to till date, black fungus, COVID-19 associated mucosis, etc., resulted in high death or human populations. Sorry. So, for getting relief, apart from modern treatment, the human being can reduce, even prevent these infection diseases with proper awareness, changes of socio-cultural practices and behavior. In view of that, the prime aim is to highlight the different infectious diseases as well as epidemics suffered by human beings in different times and the role of anthropology to reduce or prevent it. And in this regard, the very minimum contents. Then the origin of epidemics, we are well known, that is, it was derived from a Greek word, epi meaning upon or above, and demos means people, and is the term used to describe a situation where a disease spreads rapidly to a large number of people in a given population over a short time period. For example, meningococcal infections, an attack rate in excess of 15 cases per 100,000, that is 1 lakh people for 2 consecutive weeks, is considered an epidemic. The use of the term epidemic as far back as Homer's Odysseus, in which the poet used the term in a way that's similar to the way we now use epidemic, endemic. The first recorded instance of the word epidemic being used to refer to a widespread disease is around the year 430 BC, when Hippocrates included in the medical treatise. The definition, if we observe, that is, the dictionary meaning is, that is epidemic, also epidemical, of a disease affecting many persons at same time and spreading from person to person in a locality where the disease is not permanently prevalent. And the other definition, more or less the same definition. Then, what is an epidemic? In theoretical discussion or historical part is there. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention says an epidemic as an unexpected increase in the number of disease cases in a specific geographical area. An epidemic is any rise in case beyond the baseline for that geographical area. Smallpox, cholera, yellow fever, typhoid, measles, and polio were some of the worst epidemics in American history. Today, HIV and drug-resistant tuberculosis are not epidemics. Today, the word epidemics is used in casual conversions to refer almost anything negative that has spread throughout a culture or a region. For example, laziness, gun violence, and opioid use have all been called epidemics in popular media. However, this is not a disease. These are not the disease. But epidemic what? However, an epidemic is a disease that affects a large number of people, already I told you. And then the second, if we observe, that is infectious diseases are spread by either bacterial or viral agents and are ever present in society. Usually, infected cases are present in numbers below an expected threshold A, but every once in a while there may be an outbreak, a new strain or a new disease that has a significant impact at either a local or global level. The spread and rate of new cases can be classified as, that is, an epidemic, pandemic, endemic, and outbreak. Now, what is the basic Already we told that is epidemics. Pandemic is the term used to describe an epidemic that's spread over multiple countries or continents, that is when the spread is global. Endemics in this regards, it describes a disease that is present permanently in a region or population. And last, an outbreak is greater than anticipated increase in the number of endemic cases. It can also be a single case in a new area. If it's not quickly controlled, an outbreak can become an epidemic. Now, the epidemic can occur when an infection or agent such as virus suddenly becomes much more prevalent in an area where it already existed. The point to be noted, because here the social anthropology as well as cultural anthropology is very much useful. Second point, when an outbreak spreads throughout an area where the disease was not previously known. When people who were not previously susceptible to an infectious agent suddenly start getting sick from it. Now, other factors, epidemics of infectious disease are generally caused by several factors, including a change in the ecology of the host population. Already our chairperson told at the very beginning, at the time of introduction, and a genetic change in the pathogen reservoir or the introduction of an emerging pathogen to a host population. And it has happened, that is by movement of pathogen or host. Generally, an epidemic occurs when host immunity to either an established pathogen or newly emerging novel pathogen is suddenly reduced below that found in the endemic equilibrium and the transmission thresholds is exceeded. The conditions which govern the outbreak of epidemics include infected food supplies such as contaminated drinking water and migrations of populations of certain animals such as rats or mosquitoes, which can act as disease vectors. So the social and cultural anthropology is most effectful in these areas. So we must try to know later. Now, epidemics can be related to seasonality of certain infections. Seasonalities may enter into any of the 8 key elements of the system, that is susceptible recruitment via reproduction, transmission, acquired immunity and recovery, waning immunity, natural mortality, symptomatology, and pathology, which may be acute or chronic depending on the disease, and disease-induced mortality, and cross-species transmissions. Now, influenza, the common cold, and other infections of other respiratory tract, such as sore throat, occur predominantly in the winter. There is another variation both as regards the number of people affected and the number who die in successive epidemics. The severity of successive epidemics rise and falls over periods of 5 and 10 years. So moreover, an epidemic can cause enormous damage through financial economic losses in addition to impaired health and loss of life. So now transmission that depends on the factors, these are very much important, that is airborne transmission. Airborne transmission is the spreads of infection by droplet, nuclei or dust in the air without the interventions of winds or drafts. The distance over which airborne infection takes place in short, say 10 to 20 feet. Then arthropod transmission. Arthropod transmission takes place by an insect, either mechanically through a contaminated proboscis, or feet, or biologically when there is growth or replications of an organisms in the arthropods. Now, biological transmissions involving biological process, Paschim, a stage of developments of the infection agents in an intermediate host opposite to mechanical transmission. Contact transmission, the disease agent is transferred directly by biting, sucking, chewing, or indirectly by inhalation of droplets, drinking of contaminated water, traveling in contaminated vehicles. So, in every context, the contact transmissions that can be controlled by applying the knowledge of that is social and cultural anthropology, that is through social cultural practices, behavioral practices. Now, that is vertical transmission. It is something different from one generation to the next, perhaps transversally or by intraterrine infections of the fetus. Some retroviruses are transmitted in the germline, that is, their genetic material is integrated into the DNA of either the ovum or sperm. So, next, if we observe, now the major 19 epidemics and pandemics during that is in last on not on 65 from on 65 years to 2021, that is around in last 1900 years. If we observe, there are 19 major epidemics. In every cases we may observe that is epidemics and pandemics with at least 1 million deaths. These are occurred. The first is plague, and it was this basically we call it Black Death, a bubonic plague, and the death toll is in million. All the data is in millions. 75 to 200 million people were died, and the time was 1346 to 1353. Mainly it was in Europe, Asia, and North Africas. That is half of the part of this world, nearly. Then Spanish flu, we are well known. 17 to 100 million of people died during 1918 to 1920. It is not very, that is very back. That is only 100 years back. And this pandemic was worldwide. Justinian plague, that is, we call it sometime Justinian plague or plague of Justinian. The 15 to 100 million people are died. It is also found mostly in Europe and West Asia. And then HIV/AIDS, 36 million people are died. So it is not a joke, and it was observed in worldwide. Obviously, it is a virus, but we are well known. That is very much cultural. That is cultural practices and behaviors are very much attached with this for spreading these kinds of HIV. And several plagues, I am not going all the details. That is again, this is plague, that is third plague. And then COVID-19, yet now, that is on 24th October 2021. Actual data is not here. That is, it is very difficult. That is 5 to 19 million people are died. The government data is not 19, but several economists and other observations and other report it was made worldwide population. Now, if we cocologically, that is 5 to 15 million, then another again plague, then Mexico smallpox. It was happened, the number 8. This data, that is 5 to 10 million people are died. That is 25 to 33% of Roman people population. It was possibly 165 to 180 years. That is AD. And so this is the most early evidence. Mainly it was in Roman Empire. And then we may observe that is in 1982, typhus, that is 2 to 3 million people had died in Russia. Influenza we call it A/H2N2. 1 to 4 million people are died. And then Hong Kong flu, cocoa lizardly, smallpox, bubonic plague, cholera. Cholera, that was 1846 to 1860. And in Bengali, there was a very good example. There is a story written by Sharat Chandra in Indranath and Srikant. We observed that huge numbers of people died due to cholera. So at that time, it was epidemic. Now, after that, again, bubonic plague and influenza, that is in 1889 to 1890, influenza, that is worldwide, around 0.7% people are died, nearly 1 million. So if we observe chronologically, that is history, from the human history, it is known that from 1350 BC to 2021, human being has faced 248 epidemics. 248 epidemics. So we are very lucky that we are alive. Or our forefathers, or not forefathers, that is obviously our forefathers, they are not died, and that's why we are here. So we are very lucky. Obviously, we are lucky. So among these, some are great epidemics, while some are lesser. Already I told. Moreover, from ancient to till now, these have largely devastated human population and made vulnerable their progress, development, socio-cultural life as a whole. For getting relief, apart from modern treatment, people can reduce, even prevent these diseases with proper awareness, changes of socio-cultural practices. At the very beginning, our chairman told that is due to environmental, natural, or other kinds of changes. Now, the total society is changing, not only social, the both social and biological aspects of the societies are being changed. In the meantime, food habit has been changed a lot due to environmental change, due to economic changes. Shelter type, shelter pattern has been changed due to environmental factors. Now the water scarcity are there, pollutions have been increased, that is pollutions are there, and particularly in after post-pandemic, what happened, post-epidemics, what happened? That is, a group of people or a large number of people face severe problems to survive. Epidemic is one thing. That is, at the time of epidemic, some of the people are died. But during this time, people lost their economy, that is food, that is shelter, and the health system, even that is, that is the socio-cultural practices, religious practices, even the environment is changed. Even the environment is changed a lot, and that's why the people had to face a lot of problems. So in this regards, I want to say that is, after chronology, the this is important, the role of social scientist, that is anthropologist in particular. Before that, I want to say what is health. The health, actually, the meaning is different and it varies community to community. But a common definition that is practiced by all the people and most that is accepted by the people, that is defined by who in 1941. Very simple, health is a state of complete physical, mental, social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So fine. So in these regards, now how can we, after the epidemics or during epidemics, we could understand that is the transmission is needed. Several types of transmission that may be happening due to several vectors, several agents. Now the human being can control these vectors, and suppose which are, that is visually. Always the always which is micro or very small, which is not visible. This is very difficult. But if the people are aware by practicing or by changing their socio-cultural practices, sometime it can be changed. And the evidences are there in last 30 years or in several years, the human being we are well known, that is by practicing or by living some or by changing their socio-cultural practices, the people can get relief. People got relief from several diseases or the epidemics that is under these are under control. Now, social scientists, anthropologists in particular, have for some time been recognized as potentially important players in emergency public health efforts, particularly in outbreak response. And the example is recent largest scale outbreaks of Ebola virus, that is very recently 2013 to 2016, Guinea, Liberia, and Syria, Leone, and then Zika virus 2015 to 2016, North Central and South America, Pacific Islands, Southeast Asia, and cholera in Yemen 2017 have brought a renewed urgency to farmers' call, highlighting the need to understand the social pathways of disease transmission and barriers to care. In the last 5 years, anthropologists have been particularly valued for their ability to assess these factors in local contexts. While anthropologists have been involved in diseases outbreaks for many years, their role in emergence seems like to increase, given growing calls of greater integration of socio-cultural approach to health crisis. I think now it is very clear that is socio-cultural practices. That is several practices in all over the world that there are several thousands groups are there, and each groups they have a specific socio-cultural practices. Even I think that we are well known that is a Kuru epidemic. Kuru epidemic, it was happened during 18th or 19th, early 18th century, and several people died. It is nothing but it is a practice of the group of people. They ate the brain after the death. The human brain was roasted and eaten by the people, and the people had to suffer a lot of problems, lot of health diseases. And when it was identified that these kinds of virus that these are developed from the that is roasted brain of the dead persons, and it was there is a Kuru virus, and they live it. And after living this kinds of Kuru epidemics, now it is not available. So the um, now the now the collaboration between anthropology and epidemiology has a long and tumultuous history. As applied medical anthropology has become a more central discipline in public health over the last 30 years. Challenges and debates relating to cross-disciplinary collaboration, particularly with epidemiologists, have come to the fore. The demand for anthropological input in public health emerged less from academic epidemiology and more from the limitation that professionals in leading organizations such as the World Organization and bilateral donor agencies experienced when relying solely on epidemiology for improving program development, evaluation, and implementation. So, anthropologists are potentially important players in emergency public health responses, providing insights on social dynamics of health, illness, and disease transmission. And these are very important. So, anthropological methods are quite distinct from and maybe in tension with other public health techniques. Now, the finding is the recent largest scale outbreak of Ebola virus saw anthropologists working in different capacities of the response. These interactions led to new insights on how anthropologists can functions within public health emergency. So now the role of anthropology so obviously have an impact during epidemics. Anthropologists, how can anthropology have an impact during epidemics and pandemics during this current situation? In this regard, Sharon Abramoit's article, Epidemics, especially Ebola, from the 2017 Annual Review of Anthropology, provides a rich example in an explanation of anthropological interventions in the recent West African Ebola epidemic of 2014-16. That is, Abramoit describes the crucial role that anthropologists played alongside social workers and other experts in understanding the on the ground realities and in advocating for the agency and capacity of local population to respond to the epidemic. Now, the role of the social science in response to health crisis is well established, given the extent to which human behavior determines how infection disease spread. These are the most important thing. So apart from the epidemiology as well as the medical science, now the social scientist, particularly the medical anthropologist as well as social cultural anthropologist, they can participate in these regards and they can contribute their knowledge in these regards. The Ebola outbreak in West Africa between 2014 to 16 made it even more apparent why anthropologists could help medical authorities consider local cultural and social characteristics in their response to virus outbreaks. That outbreak also provided new perspectives on the origin of social and individual attitudes during epidemics and how to assist grieving families. Today, as the world faces yet another global health crisis, Charles Sill, Briggers, president of Society of Medical Anthropology, says anthropology can help us dismantle our views of established social categories and think more deeply about things we take for granted. So now every epidemic, obviously it is unique, but anthropologists can point out the parallels with other sources of epidemics and therefore suggest what made them have their particular shapes and their particular outcomes. They provide us with a basis for understanding what is going on. The second role is to be able to push people outside of the frame of now this is COVID-19 to be able to understand the underlying factors that help shape the current situation. It is extremely important to ask what are the underlying factors or race, racism, unequal distribution of resource in the United States that are affecting who lives and who dies. And the same is also important for the other parts of the world as well as in India also. So we need to ask who will be out of the works of unemployed for years, who will have acute food shortage in the futures. That's why most crucial for the society which is also right now experiencing this tremendous movement that has been going on for a long time. Now, in every context, if we analyze this whole situation, that is, in obviously the epidemics, these are due to several agents, these are responsible. But transmissions, migrations, or various human behavior practices, that is chewing, that is circums, or others. There are lots of practices. We have drinking waters and many other things are there. It is every day we practice, and the social anthropology can identify these things, and they can identify the practice of these, and they can suggest to the policymakers. They can work combinedly with the epidemiologists as well as medical sciences, modern medical sciences, and they can help by giving several suggestions or ideas to the governments. However, the one thing it is very important nowadays we are observing now the in many states now they do not give the importance of social sciences to understand the importance of diseases and other things, and sometimes only the politicians they take the decisions for resolving it, and that's why the people has to suffer a lot. So in this regard, the politician should need to ask the anthropologist as well as the medical practitioners to combat these situations. So now I want to finish here. I want to thank you for listening this. Thank you for listening these whole discussions. I'm ending here. If you have some queries and other things, please.
Thank you, Professor Biswas. Thank you. Thank you for some ideas about the range of epidemics that you have documented last 165 years, or more than 1,000 years, perhaps.
No, nearly 1,000 years.
Nearly 1,000.
2,000 years. Nearly 2,000
Yeah. And the role of anthropology, of how anthropologists can contribute to for a solution or managing the epidemics what the people are experiencing throughout the history. Now we have some perhaps 5 minutes, it may be about 2 minutes for opinion or questions, if any. We have in the chat box from the Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay a question: the Kuru is a virus or disease? Sir, please mention where this type of cannibalism takes place.
Yeah, right. Basically, it was a Kuru virus, and later the name, it is well known, that is Kuru epidemics. I'm telling I have these documents. Also, it has not been included because 248 epidemics faced the human society in different times. If you give this time, then I may say in details about this.
No. It's perhaps I am.
Its origin
limited
and other
time.
things.
Yes, limited times.
Because I have mentioned only 19 virus, 19 epidemics, but there are 248. The human history has faced 248 epidemics in several times, and most probably it was happened in 1836 or like this. If I get, I shall inform you. Now I'm trying to find it. If there is any other question, please.
Okay. Any questions? Do you have some Himal Babu who raised hand? Himal Babu? No, perhaps. Anybody? Anybody has any comments or suggestions or questions? Okay, Professor Biswas, thank you. Hello. Yeah, yes. Anybody? Hello? Yeah, please.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Sir.
Sure.
Please ask. Hello.
Just I am giving on information, correct information. That is Papua New Guinea, a Kuru epidemics. It was happened in 1901 to 2009. And the place is Papua New Guinea, and the name of this virus is Kuru. and the people died, that is 2,700 to 3,000 plus. And this is the correct information. Please, the next question, if any.
And also the Gaddusek got Nobel Prize on this Kuru disease in 99 and 74.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Prema sir.
Anybody? Okay, Professor Shamor Vishwas, for your excellent presentations on epidemics and the possible role of anthropology in managing the epidemics. Now we have another. We had to go through the program schedule. We had another speaker, Professor Elena Godina of Moscow State University. As per organizer, she communicated that she will not be able to present his paper due to her illness. So by this, thanks to Premananda Bharati, Professor Premananda Bharati, Professor Shamor Vishwas, other distinguished professors, to the organizers for giving me opportunity to chair the interesting session. I will hand over to Mitra, perhaps Mrs. Mitra, Moshe Mitra, to continue the session, continue the seminar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I express my sincere thanks to both the resource persons and honorable chairperson of this technical session to share your views and thoughts regarding various interesting issues of anthropology of epidemics with our participants. Now we are almost at the end of today's the first day of this 3 days international webinar. So now I cordially invite Dr. Shantanu Ponda, faculty and researcher, Department of Anthropology, Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalay, and also the joint secretary of this 3 days international webinar to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Good late afternoon to all of you. I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion. Let me first of all started by giving glory to the Almighty God for making today's occasion a resounding success. First and foremost, I thank our honorable inaugurator, Professor Omio Kumar Panda, Vice Chancellor, Sadhu Ramchand Murmu University, Jhargram, for his kind presence as inaugurator for his busy schedule. We are grateful to the principal of Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay and principal of Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalay for their strong support to conduct this webinar. Now, I thankful to Dr. Bidhan Kanti Das, Associate Professor, IDSK, for his kind permission to act as a chairperson during the first invited lecture session. Now, my heartfelt thanks to Professor Premananda Bharati and of Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, Professor Shamor Kumar Vishwas, Department of Anthropology, North Bengal University, for their lucid and valuable speech as invited speaker in our international webinar. Now I thankful to Professor Arup Ratan Bandyopadhyay, Professor Subir Kumar বিশ্বাস, Professor Gulam Hasin, Sir, Professor Adil Hassan Chaudhary, and Professor Ajay Chakraborty, Professor Sudeep Bhui for their kind presence in our first day session. I also thankful to all oil wishers who are supported socially, mentally, and physically to enrich the webinar a grand success. I acknowledge to Dr. Moushumi Mitra to act as a moderator to the first day webinar of our first day session to first day session of our 3 days international webinar. We are thanks to the technical support team. Without them, we are unable to organize that type of international webinar. Last but not least, I thank all participants and colleagues for painstaking presence as listeners. Without them, the program is not success. Now, I am also thankful to our IQAC coordinator, Dr. Sumit Kumar Maiti, for his kind support to completion the webinar. Thank you all. Now I hand over to Professor Moushumi Mitra ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So with this message from the Joint Secretary of this webinar, I declare the end of the first day of this 3 days international webinar on Anthropology of Epidemics organized by Department of Anthropology, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay and IQAC of Seva Bharati Mahavidyalay in collaboration with Department of Anthropology, Sukumar Sengupta Mahavidyalay, Kespur. We will meet again tomorrow at 3 p.m. So, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night.